Thor Love and Thunder was about, you guessed it, two things. Love and thunder. Oh, and also Guns N' Roses. Yeah, that too. So, Thor Love and Thunder, did it live up to the hype? Because I don't know about you guys, but I was pretty excited for this movie. The commercials and ads and everything made it look like, oh, it was going to be this awesome adventure with all these characters coming. And well, let's just say it unfortunately did not live up to the hype. But let's go piece by piece and look at what this movie had to offer. First, the main theme of the movie pretty much is love. Thor's getting back with Jane Foster, his previous love, and they basically rekindle that flame, and Thor, his character in this is interesting. We see him at the beginning, he's kind of trying to find himself, and then when he reunites with Jane, he realizes that's what was missing. He wanted Jane back, and that's basically what he needed in his life. Which, speaking of Jane, she was an interesting character in this. Overall, I'd say she was pretty good, but I feel like some of the lines between her and Thor, I mean, obviously some of them were supposed to be goofy, but I thought, like, just the humor in general in this movie kind of fell flat. Like, it was very corny, not in a good way. But Jane's whole character is, she, basically, she's dying of cancer pretty much. And all of a sudden, she's like, I can basically hear Mjolnir calling to me. She goes to it, it activates, basically, and she gains the power of Thor. And we find out later the reason this happened is because Thor, I guess this is one thing I did find kind of stupid about the movie, but it's whatever. Their weapons almost have, like, human, like, quality, because multiple times in the movie we see Thor talking to Stormbreaker and whatnot, and then basically this leads to us seeing a scene where Thor talked to Mjolnir and said, always protect Jane, and that basically, like, put a spell or something that caused it so Mjolnir, when Mjolnir was calling out to Jane, that's like why that happened, and that's why she's able to gain the power of Thor. It's protecting her, basically. So I guess I kind of feel mixed on that. I feel like the reasoning is stupid almost, but as far as Jane in the movie, she does do some pretty cool stuff, and it was nice to see her character once again. And then we get to, I guess, Christian Bale's character, Gore the God Butcher. He was a good part of this movie. He did a good job. The reason why he became, like, the villain, it felt a little rushed, and it was a little like, oh yeah, here's this sword, so now you can kill him. It felt a bit forced, but basically, he worshipped a god, and the god didn't care about him. Conveniently, this cursed god-killing sword happens to be right there next to him, and he's able to take it and kill this god, and then he goes on a god-killing rampage. So, yeah, that felt kind of forced, but his actual character is very good. he did a good performance as him, pretty creepy, and his character was very enjoyable to watch. The Guardians are in this movie, the Guardians of the Galaxy. They show up in the beginning. I was wondering, leading up to this movie, if they were only gonna have a little part, or if they were gonna have a bigger part. And I thought they would probably only have a, like, fairly small part. And I was right. They show up in the beginning, they fight this battle. Star-Lord basically tells Thor some words of wisdom, like, you need to find what makes you feel whole, like, basically you need to find love. And then he goes and does, but they get out after that. So yeah, they only have a small part, but it's nice to see them again. Now, when we get into the meat and potatoes of the movie, I think the whole, like, quest is, like, cool to watch. It's fun and enjoyable. They go from basically finding out about Gore, battling against him, and then they have to go save the Asgardian children. And they go to see the gods, which is enjoyable to watch. It's cool seeing all these people, and the way Thor interacts with Zeus is fun. It's funny seeing Thor's naked butt. He gets this lightning bolt weapon, which is Zeus's, like, personal weapon, and that the special effects they use for that are very cool to see. But then after that, they go and they try to take out Gore again, fail, and then Thor's like, Thor takes up one last final stand about him, and they eventually break the sword, but Gore still succeeds. And then this leads us to the ending, which is where Thor basically convinces Gore to not kill all gods. He convinces him that he needs love, tying into the theme of the movie. And so he wishes his daughter back alive, which is why he went on this rampage pretty much in the first place, because his daughter died and the gods did nothing, and he found out the gods were a bunch of douchebags. But he wishes his daughter back alive, but he's basically dead at this point because the cursed sword had been sucking out all his life energy, basically. So he's practically dead. And he even wondered to himself, he's like, I'm almost dead, there's gonna be no one to take care of her. But the big shock at the end of the movie is Thor basically becomes a dad, and he ends up taking care of Gore's daughter, which I'm interested to see where they take that. Also at the end, Jane Foster does pass away because of her cancer. And I thought this was a good decision, honestly. Like I said, it was cool to see her again, but I don't feel like she's really a character who's gonna stay around that much. Especially since Thor is still there. We have that Thor, and he'll just do the Thor stuff. We don't necessarily need two Thors. As cool as it is to see both of them doing their stuff. But then they have, in the second post-credit scene, a scene of her meeting Heimdall and getting into Valhalla, which is cool to see, but it has me wondering if, like, oh, it's just showing that's where she ended up, in Valhalla, or if they might possibly do more with that, because they did show it to us. So I don't know what they'd do with it if they did, but that's just something that if they do take it somewhere, I'd like to see where they're gonna take it. Another little note, I am a little biased towards the soundtrack in this movie because Guns N' Roses is my favorite band personally. So, I'd say the soundtrack is very good. Now, they did have like 2 songs by them used in pretty quick succession towards the beginning. So I was a little worried there because I was thinking, oh, they're gonna overuse it and then it's not gonna be that good. But they did not overuse it in my opinion. They had about 4, I think it was 4 Guns N' Roses songs spread throughout the movie, and they were all used pretty effectively. So yeah, like I said, I'm a little biased because that is my favorite band. Good soundtrack selection, especially after we had Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin and Thor Ragnarok, because that was cool how they used that, but that was also the only song they used, so it was cool seeing them use a whole band selection in this. So, I would say this is an enjoyable movie. The action is good, the characters are enjoyable to watch, and the overall like progression of it is good, but some of the humor is not, it really doesn't land, and I just thought it was a little like overly goofy. Like, I expected it to be goofy, especially after Thor Ragnarok, but it was like a little goofy sometimes to the point of, okay, now this is just dumb. But like I said, the movie was enjoyable, and I would say it is worth watching at least one time. So with that, overall rating for Thor Love and Thunder for me is gonna be 6 out of 10 smackaroonies. See you guys in the next one.
To make a long fucking story short, I put a whole bag of jelly beans up my ass.